atmosphere is electric.
NBA champ and 14-time All-Star Dirk Nowitzki.
Thanks for having me. It's amazing.
Walk around you and just scan your body, right? All right, you ready?
Yep.
Yeah! That was incredible.
All right, welcome to Global Hoops, where this morning we'll explore the NBA's global influence with a special focus on the Asia-Pacific region. I'm Erica Kerner, and I'll be your moderator. I'd like to welcome Ramez Sheikh here for this morning's session. As Managing Director of NBA Asia, he oversees development and expansion of the NBA in Asia-Pacific, excluding Greater China, directing all of NBA Asia and NBA's India's business groups. Prior to being appointed Managing Director of NBA Asia, Ramez previously served as Vice President and General Manager of Global Content and Media Distribution, where he played an instrumental role in the expansion of the NBA media and content business in Asia Pacific, managing key relationships with broadcast, digital, and social media partners, as well as overseeing the launch of various new media, content, and direct-to-consumer initiatives in the region. Before joining the NBA, Ramez held various media roles, including at NBC Universal APAC and at the Walt Disney Company's Disney Media Distribution Division. Good morning, Ramez.
Good morning.
I'm excited to get your perspective on the health of the sport of basketball, the NBA as the most valuable, one of the most valuable entertainment properties in the world, and your priorities of Asia as a new frontier. So let's jump right in.
Sure thing.
Can you provide some insights on the global health of the game, particularly basketball's place in Asia Pacific, as well as the key factors that have contributed to growing the sport outside of North America?
Yeah. So I was just in Manila for the FIBA World Cup final, and Germany walked away with the trophy. Some of the Germans out there.
Beating the U.S. early on, if I recall.
Beating the U.S. early on, beating Serbia in the finals, and there was a sizable Singapore Serbian contingent in the stands with a Singapore Serbian flag. But the State of the Union for basketball globally is strong. It's evidenced by the health of the global competition that we just saw. Asia was host. There were 3 co-hosts of the tournament, Philippines, obviously, Japan, and Indonesia. And by all metrics, basketball is a rising global sport. And obviously, in the U.S., it's the most played sport, and in Asia Pacific, it's the 3rd most played sport in aggregate outside of Greater China, with a lot of room to grow. And most recently, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution where on December the 21st, we'll have a World Basketball Day. And that's the first time a team sport has been honored with that designation. So I think generally, basketball, sport in general, there is great demand. You know, we had the session before, we live in an attention economy, and one genre that does quite well is live sport. And within that particular category, you know, basketball continues to grow.
You said it's the 3rd most popular sport in Asia Pacific. What are the first 2?
Well, I believe in this part of the world, it's football mad. And then badminton does very well. Again, we're looking at Southeast Asia and Asia Pacific. Cricket in India, obviously. And so in the Philippines, basketball is a religion. It's probably our most passionate fan base. In Australia, basketball is the #1 participated sport. And we have rising trends all across the rest of North Asia and Southeast Asia. And a big part of that is I think what we, the league, try to do with the game of basketball, a big priority for us is to introduce the game at a very young age to both girls and boys as part of our grassroots initiatives. We have our junior NBA program, and the idea there really is how can we have young kids exposed to the game by holding a basketball and by learning virtues of competition, teamwork, resilience, and fair play. And these aren't just basketball lessons, these are life lessons. And so that's a big part of our mission to inspire and connect fans and young players. We spend a lot of time looking at our NBA basketball schools, again, providing curriculum for both teachers, parents. We have NBA academies all across the world, in India and also in Australia. We have our Global Academy, and that's an opportunity for high school talent outside of the US to come together in an elite environment. We've conducted some form of basketball training for players or coaches, referees in 173 countries. And so it's a big commitment for us to grow the game at a grassroots level. Here in Asia, we've engaged about 40 million young girls and boys as part of our programs, and we're going to continue to try to introduce and grow the game that way.
Do you see the mix of girls versus boys growing? I mean, obviously, we just had Jane yesterday talking about the Women's World Cup. Do you see the women's sport changing as well in Asia Pacific?
Yeah, 100%. I think in certain countries, basketball is played more at the youth level than boys. In Japan, for example. And so that balance is definitely there from a participation perspective. And I think part of our goal and obligation is to increase viewership and consumption of girls, of female basketball. And that's a big part of what we're doing as well. I mean, the NBA, most people think of the NBA, our core NBA product, National Basketball Association, but we represent 5 leagues in total. So one is the NBA. Our second is the Women's League, the WNBA, which is in its 27th season. Our Development League, a minority league, G League. Our joint venture with Take-Two, NBA 2K, which is our esports league. And then most recently, our Basketball Africa League, which just completed its 3rd season. So those 5 leagues are what we at the NBA represent globally. And stimulating female women's sport, the WNBA in particular, is a priority of ours, certainly in Asia Pacific.
Fantastic. The NBA is home to the best basketball players in the world and widely regarded as the most global of all the North America-based sports leagues. Can you share with us what sets the NBA apart from other U.S. sports leagues?
Yeah, I think just that, our international and global identity. I'm thrilled, as I mentioned, with the result at the FIBA World Cup because it just shows that the world is caught up. It's competitive out there. You can't send an American team and expect to win. It's highly competitive, and that's a good thing for the health of our game. And even within our own competition at the NBA, 25% of our players are born outside the U.S. It's 120 players. The past 5 most valuable players, an important metric within our sport, have been foreign-born players. And so having that international appeal and that competitiveness at an individual and team level is incredibly important. So I think that's one distinguishing factor. I think the other is the NBA right now is incredibly competitive. Over the past 5 seasons, we've had 5 different champions. We've tinkered with the format where last season, 26 of our 30 teams had a chance to reach our postseason. We divide our season into a regular season and postseason. So 26 out of the 30 teams with 10 days to go had a shot at making it to the postseason. And so that parity in talent and competition is really important, and that's what's driving fandom. And people are interested to see who's going to get to the top in any particular season. It's not guaranteed. And so I think those two factors have really helped drive demand and engagement for our league. And I think the other element that sets up the NBA up a little differently, I think, from other professional sports is we're not just a sport. Obviously, we spend a lot of time thinking about our sport, making it the best experience we can, both on the court and off the court for our spectators and our fans. But we're more than that. We're a brand, we're a business, we are a lot of things. And so that's, I think, another access point for many fans who are not homogenous, by the way. I mean, we have our diehard sports fans, but we also have fans of the NBA that aren't necessarily watching our games from top to tail. And so thinking about who our fans are, what they're looking for, how do we serve the right content and experiences to them are elements we spend a lot of time trying to think about and get right.
Yeah. So you touched on my next question. I mean, the region is not homogenous.
Not at all.
Asia Pacific is so many different cultures and different sports are popular, different how they enjoy basketball is different. How do you tailor your programs to the different markets in Asia Pacific?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is really the research that we do and listening to our partners and thinking about our fandom. Like I mentioned, we look at every market and try to segment our fans within the market and try to understand where they are on our fan funnel on that journey. And what's fascinating to us, well, to me at least, is how do you create a fan of any sport, right? In some geographies, a young girl or boy sees a ball, and what's that tendency going to be? To either kick it, to maybe pick it up and throw it, or to find an object and hit it, right? And so, at that level, we're just trying to figure out, well, how do you influence that moment where somebody becomes a fan of something? And that is alchemy. That is not science. And so we spend time trying to unpack that and figure that out. So that's a big part, I think, of how we're thinking about what we do in India, for example, or what we do in Australia, what we do here in Singapore and the rest of Southeast Asia. So it's starting at that level. I think we also spend a lot of time thinking about the right partners. How do we get the right partners to deliver the broadcast of our game, the language, the presentation, and so we rely on that. We have our own direct-to-consumer service with our NBA app and our International League Pass product. And we've been in the direct-to-consumer game for a long time. I always like to remind people that the original direct-to-consumer is our coaches going out to these 170 countries and spreading the word of basketball, interacting and touching young people with basketball. And we launched our digital product in 1995 on cable, our streaming product, and then we migrated that about 12 years ago onto the internet. And so having the right, again, content, language, personalization is essential when we try to package what are we doing in Japan, what are we doing in Indonesia, what are we doing in India. And so really thinking through how we're going to present the game and how we're going to access our fandom in these different countries. Social plays a massive role in how we create and sustain fans. And I think in the session before me, Gotham made some excellent points about short-form content, games, having an audience there on YouTube who are our partners, who we have extended highlights with. But the NBA is one of the more muscular leagues when it comes to social. We have a community of about 2 billion followers across the world. We've got close to 40 million followers here in Asia Pacific alone. And so the social space is where we spend a lot of time, also trying to access fans through our content, through our partnerships. And the two partnerships, I think, that have worked really, really well for us. One in India with Bollywood star Ranveer Singh, and here in Asia with Suga, part of the band BTS. Any BTS ARMY members out there?
Everyone knows BTS, right?
And so Suga I didn't know this. I don't think many people at the league knew this, but when we started discussing a partnership, but Shuga means shooting guard, which is a position in basketball. And so both Ranveer and Shuga are fans, first and foremost. I mean, real passionate fans who love the game. And an opportunity to partner with them and tap into their fan base and introduce the game of basketball, and most importantly, their passion to their followers and to their fan base is just tremendous. And then we take that authentic connection and we build on that. So for example, with Shuga, we'll be launching a limited merch capsule collection later this week. With Ranveer, we're working on a campaign together. And so those are examples of, I think, partnerships that help us get deeper, get more relevant, and get more real in particular geographies.
Yeah. You touched on some of the digital statistics just now, and digital is such an important part of the NBA strategy. Can you talk a little bit about how you're adapting to grow the consumer in the digital space, and how does that play out globally versus what it might be in Asia Pacific? Yeah,
it's a great question. That tension, I think, is really productive. So we have our global brand campaigns, we have our kind of global messages, our global social handles, for example, and that mothership drives our overall fandom. But we have to think deeply and carefully about the messages that we create in the community that we engage with here in Asia. And there's no Asia, just shorthand for what we're doing in a Korea or in an Indonesia or what have you. But I think working with, other than the partners I mentioned, working with creators, again, referencing our previous session, really important for us. And so we have a program, Friends of the NBA, where we really look for the right collaborators and creators that we can work with, and who we can also provide a different kind of experience in terms of what content they're producing, or how they're positioning their particular followers. And so that's a big part of what we do. And on top of that, there's a lot of content that we produce for social in particular. So I think that's one really important area for us that we do locally. I mentioned our app, and we are producing more and more localized, both short form and long form content to tell basketball stories. But we're also broadening the aperture of the content that we serve up, so it's not just NBA content. So the app is the place where you can go and get all 1,500 regular season games, postseason games. But beyond that, in select markets, we had the FIBA World Cup distributed as well, and we have other basketball leagues that we've offered. So for some of our French fans, there's a generational talent coming out of France. We were able to show some of his games, the French league games, Victor Wembanyama. And so those are some other types of things that we're trying to do to stimulate the game locally.
You talked about collaborations and brand ambassadorships, and as a marketer, I'm a huge fan of collaborations, and I love all the stretching that brands are doing in spaces that you wouldn't expect. So can you tell us a little bit more about some of the brand collaborations that you're doing? You talked about, as I say, Shuga, but maybe with some of the brand partners in the region?
Absolutely. So we've got about 60 brand partnerships with some tremendous partners, terrific partners. One of my favorites is Hennessy. And Hennessy is a particularly progressive partner where they have a courtside campaign where they have activated in some really interesting ways. And one of my favorites is they built a basketball court in the middle of Sydney Harbor and invited fans to have an event there. And so those are the types of out-of-the-box experiences that our partners create, and through those activations, it's another opportunity for us to engage our fan community, to stimulate new types of fandom. And so partnerships are absolutely essential. I think for what we try to think about is, what are we offering? certainly here in the Asia Pacific region. One of the things that I think we do really well is bringing a much younger fan base. According to our research, the number one sport for 18 to 24-year-olds in Asia Pacific, but also worldwide, is basketball, is the NBA. So we are generally a younger sport, and I think that's really important for brands, and we're a pretty intense sport. You know, our fans, whether again they're sports fans or they're brand fans, are pretty engaged, and so our brand partners look for that, and they look for some real creative activations, and you know, we're very open and flexible. And that's the other thing, we try to think about how we can be pioneers, whether it comes to experiences or whether it comes to fan creation or technology or events. You know, one of the things that I have a lot of fun with is what else? What else are we going to do? What's new? What's different? What's challenging? What's bleeding edge? And so those are the areas that we're really focused on.
So you mentioned it earlier on, and you've just touched upon it as well. So many of your fans are fans of the sport, but they're also fans of the sport off the court. You know, fashion has become such a big part of it, the tunnel walk and what the players are wearing. How have you expanded off the court and into lifestyle in the US? And how do you see that transferring to Asia? I'm sure Japan and Korea are very forward in the lifestyle side, maybe China, but what about the rest of Asia Pacific? So both to the US side globally, but also into the region.
Well, I think one gate where the NBA has had a lot of success is through our merchandise. And, you know, jersey is not just, I'm going to put the jersey on, play the sport. The jersey, especially team jerseys, player jerseys at the NBA, it's a sign of social currency. And so we spend a lot of time making sure we have merchandise, the right merchandise, available to our fans all over the region. I believe we have close to 1,700 locations where you can purchase NBA merchandise across the Asia Pacific region. That's bricks and mortars. And then we have extensive e-commerce partnerships to allow fulfillment across, again, the Asia Pacific region. And so that's a big part of the lifestyle. I think music, fashion are big elements. In India, we launched last year our NBA Style platform, where we participated in some fashion shows. And so that's another access point. In the US, we launched this past July something called NBA Con, which really brought together all of these elements into a 3-day event where we had the sport of basketball, the business of basketball, and the brand of basketball come together for our community. And so that was really interesting. And how do we potentially bring that to the Asia Pacific region? But I think the other element that we spend a lot of time on is how do we bring the NBA to our fans? You know, we have 99% of fans are never going to go to an NBA arena.
That was going to be my next question.
Right. Yeah. And so it's how do you bring that experience? And of course, we try to replicate that through our game presentation and broadcast. And I think technology is going to enhance the opportunity to experience that. So we have a partnership with Meta. We have games offered in VR. So there's that, and we're exploring that. But one of the things we try to do is bring the NBA to our fans, and we do that through a variety of ways. The most robust is our global games. And so we, you know, over the past, I think, 30-odd years, we've brought over 200 global games to just about every region. Here in Asia Pacific, we've brought just under, I think, 20 games. The most recent of which was last year, our Tokyo games. And so bringing games to a Japan or a Philippines, or we'll have some in Abu Dhabi in early October, is a chance for people in that country, in that region, to go and experience an NBA game. And that's really important for us to sort of activate. So, you know, events and experiences are really important, especially in our post-pandemic environment where there's a real appetite for the live experience. I'm thinking about Taylor Swift's concerts and the revenue that she's generating, which is tremendous. And so people want that experience. They want to be able to go and share that with their friends, with their families, and a sport event, an NBA event, is no different. And so that's a big part of what we do as well. How do we bring the NBA as a physical experience as well as a digital experience to our fans?
Yeah. I mean, you said 99.9% of the fans, and especially in this region, will never get to go to an arena in the U.S. to see a game. What are you doing, whether it's virtually or with technology or Web3? I mean, we've been talking about that a lot this week in the conference. You were leading in this area.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think AI is the new buzzword now, right? Web3 used to be for a little while, and I think with technology, we're always trying to be there and experiment, generally with good partners. I think to your point about the Web3 space, that's an area that we remain committed to. I think we're not bulls or bears. We're trying to be thoughtful. But you're right. I think a couple of years ago, when the space was exploding, the NBA was there with our NFT product, Top Shot. This is when we were all trying to figure out what is an NFT, what does that mean, and we were right there at the beginning. And so, more recently, I think what we're really excited about is Web3 gaming, and what are the use cases and the applications for us? For us, the first question is, what is this community? What is the technology? And how can we participate in an interesting and meaningful way? How can we experiment? And so, that's an area that I think we're very focused on. Any type of technology or partnership that gets us to understand our fans, potential fans better, are things we're really interested in. In the U.S. more specifically, any technology that helps to understand the game, the sport of basketball, whether it's tracking an athlete's movements or looking at how to extract information from the court in terms of injury prevention and things like that. These are areas that we continue to invest in. And so technology overall, we're always looking at what's next. How does it help the health of the game? How does it help the health of our game presentation? And ultimately, how does it help improve fandom and the fan experience?
That's fantastic. The last question I have, because we're just about to run out of time, and it wasn't one that we prepped for, but we have been talking a lot about sustainability and DE&I, and I know the NBA is very, very involved in charitable and foundations. Can you just tell us a little bit about what you do and what you do in the region?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one of the privileges that I have is working for an organization that is exceptionally progressive, and an organization that really enables the athlete to take front and center. And we didn't really speak about this, but I think another reason why the NBA is as popular as it is, as international as it is because we have our athletes who are in some ways the original creators, and now they've got platforms from which they're able to extend their brands and their businesses. And part of many of our athletes' priorities are their stance on social issues. And the league provides a platform for where they're able to express themselves. And that I think is really important, and that trickles down to the league, to the teams, to our entire community, all employees. We set up an NBA foundation a few years ago to look at some of the social and justice issues specifically to the U.S., and that's, I think, very important to our players who are, as much as we have international representation, the majority of our players are American. And so those are areas that we're very much focused on. We do have a platform, NBA Green, that is also looking at sustainability. So more specifically, more practically, our arenas. We have 29 arenas. How do we make sure that our arena footprints are being thought about and contemplated? And so I think DEI, sustainability, those are two areas that we're very much focused on. And then I think my challenge is how to bring that in a relevant and authentic way to the Asia Pacific region. And that's where we work with partners through our NBA Cares program. We do a lot with our partners in the region. And so that's definitely top of mind for us.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. We're unfortunately out of time, but Thank you for joining us today, and good luck to the NBA and Asia Pacific.
Thank you very much. And thank you.